I want to tell you about the lubrication of the sheep shearing clippers. The Shearmaster here has 3 holes that actually say oil on them. I want to point out what we're oiling when we oil those holes. We have a Shearmaster head here which I've taken the screws out of, and I wanted to show you some of the internal parts so we know what we're oiling. First of all, this is the crankshaft. Notice the grooves around the center of it. Those grooves are made so that when we oil the hole that puts the oil into the crankshaft, that they actually suck, and this acts like a little pump, taking the oil in and shoving it out to both ends, so this crankshaft is lubricated and will not cause a heating problem. On the end of the crankshaft we have the little roller. Fits right on the end of the crank. So when the crank turns around, the little roller whips around. So those are 2 parts that we know right away are running at high speed and must be oiled. The part I'm picking up here is called the fork. And the end of the roller fits down in this little slot on the fork. So right away we know there's another wear point. And if we do not keep this oiled properly, we have a heating problem. After it becomes so warm, it actually will score it and damage it. Sometimes, if the crankshaft becomes dry enough, it'll twist the crank right off. So we have to keep these parts oiled. Again, the fork on the back of it is called the fulcrum pin. It sets down in, and I'll slide this roller on this crankshaft so you can actually see how it goes together. The fulcrum pin sets down in this little cup here, so that right away we know it's another place that has to be oiled or lubricated. So we slide it on, setting it in like that. This is the way the fork sits in. The pin sticking up is what we call the tension pin. In other words, when we tighten the tension down, it is forcing down on this pin, holding the blades tighter together. So right away, we know that pin needs to be oiled on both ends, because as this fork whips back and forth across, the pin is going to be wobbling like this. So when we're actually squirting the oil in these holes, these 2 top ones are oiling the tension pin. The bottom hole, and I like to say this is the one that I call the most important one, oils the crankshaft. Now, to give you the proper procedure of the oiling, the first thing we're going to do is squirt a little oil right in the back of each cutter. Notice what we did. We squirted it right behind the points of the cutter, so that when we first start this machine up, it's going to oil the blades right away as quick as it starts running. If we turn it on and run this machine without oil on the blades, right away we've dulled them, because the friction will dull them. Okay, after oiling the bottom of the blades, we'll squirt a little on the top. Then, holding the machine like this, we're going to be squirting it on the underneath side of the fork. In other words, we would be squirting it on the fork so it runs down, it oils this cavity here, comes on down and oils the fulcrum pin. A couple squirts here. Then we oil the holes that say oil last. This one here, I always lay it on its side, turn the machine on, and sort of force the oil down in this hole, or take your pump and pump it in, because this hole will be full of air, and if we do not take extra precautions getting the air worked out of the hole and getting the oil in, that little crankshaft cannot start sucking the oil. It's like priming the pump. So once this starts taking oil, it should disappear. And at that time, you'll hear the motor start speeding up. You can notice now it's running at several more RPMs than when we first started it. So we know it's getting oil. We need to oil this machine at least every 15 minutes. And if you're shearing under extremely dusty or sandy conditions, oil it after every sheep. The type of oil we use should be 20 weight motor oil. Spray lube, WD-40, and those kind of lubrications are not good enough. Use 20 weight motor oil and oil at least every 15 minutes.